Thank you all so much for joining today. My name is Kristen McKnight. I am an employer relations partner here at WGU in our Office of Career and Professional Development. We are so excited to have Amber Skinner here today from Specialisterne US. Um, and she's going to be talking about some of the different programs that Specialisterne has, along with some of the roles that they're recruiting for, what their recruiting process looks like, all of that good stuff. So Amber, feel free to go ahead and get started.
Thank you so much, Kristen. My name's Amber Skinner, and I am a talent acquisition coordinator for Specialisterne USA. And I'm super excited to be here. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to be here. And I'm really looking forward to introducing Specialisterne to you all. So let's go ahead and get started. Specialisterne is part of a global initiative with goals of helping employers to increase neurodiversity in their workforce. And we do this by breaking down a lot of the barriers that you would typically see in a traditional recruitment process. And we were actually started by a man named Torkel in Denmark, which is also why our company name Specialisterne is pronounced a little bit funny because it's actually a Danish word and it's the Danish word for specialist. And anyways, our founder Torkel has a son on the autism spectrum, and he saw that he had a lot of great skills, but not the best employment prospects at the time. So that is what led him to start Specialisterne Foundation. And unfortunately, autistic adults and neurodivergent adults in general tend to face similar employment prospects here in North America, with approximately 8 out of 10 being either unemployed or underemployed. So that's where we come in. And although we are a nonprofit employer at a high level, you can kind of think of us as a recruitment firm that specifically focuses on recruiting neurodivergent individuals. So we partner with companies typically on the enterprise level to run their neurodiversity hiring initiatives. And you can actually see some of our employer partners pictured here on this slide. But we actually step in and we'll take over the recruitment function for our clients, and their HR and hiring managers have very little participation in the recruitment process until it comes to that final selection. And the roles that we fill are typically entry-level roles, and they are the same roles any neurotypical person would be in, but we just provide a different avenue for neurodivergent individuals to get into those jobs through our program. And we create those avenues through our unique recruitment model, which helps employers build capacity for neurodiversity in the workplace and attract neurodiverse talent. So during the first phase of our process, we actually meet individually with each hiring manager we work with to discuss their respective roles in detail, and we analyze all of our clients' roles to ensure they're a good fit for our talent pool of neurodivergent candidates. And during the next phase of our process, during recruitment and assessment, rather than the traditional resume and face-to-face interview format, which can be difficult for neurodiverse candidates in some cases, we use a different three-step evaluation process. So first, candidates will apply on our site and fill out a survey that covers everything from your skills, your interests, education, as well as barriers that you have faced regarding employment. And applicants are invited to complete the discovery phase of our process, which includes a workplace skills inventory and more activities for us to learn about our candidates' job skills and how you work best. Then qualified candidates are invited to participate in the assessment phase of our process. And this assessment phase actually takes the place of a formal interview. And during assessment, candidates complete hands-on, task-based work sample projects to showcase your skills and abilities rather than having to tell us about them in a formal interview type setting. And we do that just in an effort to make it as neurodivergent friendly as possible. So we really believe in the show, not tell type of methodology when it comes to assessment. And these assessment tasks and work projects are actually what creates the blind recruitment profiles, which are then presented to our client hiring managers for them to make their selection decisions. And once a candidate is selected through our program, our candidates receive an offer from our client. And typically, selected candidates will participate in a temporary training period before transitioning to full-time employment. And this training period varies as far as time frame. It's typically just a few weeks. Um, and just want to, sorry to pause, but I just wanted to confirm that you all can see my screen still. Because on my end,
Hold
it
on, your
showed,
screen, yeah, it closed off. Hold on one second. Let me just, you should be able to share again, Amber.
okay, gotcha. Thank you so much.
Okay, I can see it now.
Perfect, thank you. So, as far as the training period, it is typically just a few weeks, and during this time, we make sure that your transition to the job goes very smoothly and are there to support you with getting settled into your new role. Because we do also provide employment support for both the candidate and their direct hiring managers after that training period is over and until the candidate completely integrates as an employee, which is typically about 3 months or so. And I'm sorry, it is showing me a different window on my end. So again, just to confirm, can you all see my screen?
I can't see your screen. Can you hit the share button again? It
Yeah,
is, I'm trying to troubleshoot here.
no problem. If there's anything I can do for my end, just let me know. But I think we should be back in action now. So, and I'll actually go to the next slide because this slide shows a lot of the different roles that we regularly recruit for, and it also shows some of the industries that we work with when partnering with our employers on our neurodiversity hiring initiatives. So you can see we do work with a lot of IT, tech related roles, as well as a variety of other job categories as well. And this slide just shows some of the successes we've had through our hiring initiatives. So as you can see, we have a 90% retention rate. So the vast majority of our candidates do go on to long-term success in their roles after going through our program. And we also routinely receive positive feedback from the hiring managers we work with, which is why majority of our clients are repeat clients that we work with several times throughout the year because the managers see the value that our neurodivergent candidates bring to the workforce and they usually want to work with us again, which is wonderful. And lastly, we are very proud to report that 100% of our hires say that they would recommend Specialisterne to a friend or colleague. And one other data point that's not listed on the slide, but I'm excited also to report that we, have had really great success with WGU students in particular. And actually, 5 WG students just received employment offers with one of our company partners recently. So that's super exciting. And as far as our current job opportunities, so we do have employer partnerships all throughout the US and are kicking off new job opportunities almost on a monthly basis or so. But at this point in time, we are currently working with Goldman Sachs to recruit for some really exciting full-time internship positions in tech, business, and as you can see, some data analytics, and these roles are available in Salt Lake City, uh, Dallas, Texas, and New York City. And the deadline to apply for these roles will be on June 9th. So if any of these sound interesting to you, please do check them out and submit your application. And then if none of our available job opportunities are suitable for you at this time, we always have new opportunities coming up. So you can always submit your application for our USA Talent Pool to be first notified when we launch new job opportunities in the future. And candidates in our talent pool also receive access to IBM Skills Build, and this partnership that we have with IBM provides our program participants with access to explore different learning pathways and earn digital certifications and badges for some of them as well. And our team has actually curated some recommended learning pathways that are based on the skills that we typically recruit for when partnering with our employer partners. And they include foundational skills, intro to cybersecurity, data analysis foundations, and things like project management fundamentals. But candidates also have access to the full library of learning opportunities that IBM Skills Build offers so they can explore anything that is of interest to you. And lastly, I just wanted to share this quick video from Specialisterne Foundation before we close out or pass it to questions. Thank you all so much. And I will stop sharing my screen in just one moment, Kristen, if I can figure out how to do that. Or did it already stop sharing?
You are still sharing. I'll see if I
Oh, I
can.
got it, I think.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So I'll kick off the questions. I'd love to hear more about the interview process with Specialist Sterna and what does that look like for a candidate who comes in who is interested in one of these roles?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So, as I mentioned, our assessment phase kind of takes the place of a formal interview process. And what that looks like is really overall just giving candidates the opportunity to showcase their skills and abilities rather than sitting in a formal interview type setting and having to talk about them while making eye contact and things like that. And what that looks like is some basically work samples that are provided by the direct hiring managers from the client company, as well as a candidate profile that all candidates who go through our assessment phase complete. And that includes also some questions that are very similar to those that you would be asked in a formal interview type setting, because interviews are, valuable, of course, but we simply put them in writing so that candidates have, an opportunity to think through their work and their responses. And so that's how we kind of make an effort to make it more neurodivergent friendly when and where possible. And that's actually the candidate profile is what is passed along to the client hiring managers for them to make their selection decisions. So they're essentially kind of interviewing our candidates through that document. It's a very detailed document, but that's what our assessment slash interview phase looks like.
Awesome, thanks. And feel free, anybody, if you have questions you'd like to ask, put those in the chat, and I'll bring those up as they come in. Another question that we get a lot is, what does that training look like? Is it different than it would be for somebody who's hired not through Specialisterne? Is it the same or is it a little bit different?
So it is the same as any neurotypical hire would receive from the client side. So they would, be training you on this. If it's a tech role, which is what we primarily focus in, they would be training you on the specific tools and technologies that that company uses. Since we do work primarily on entry-level roles, they're all very great opportunities to further develop those foundation of skills. But the only difference between our program participants and any other hire within the company is we do provide that workplace support and, from more of a workplace readiness perspective, not so much the tech skills training, but so our workplace support managers are there for those candidates just to help set them up for the best chance of success in any way they can. But that's, what the training would look like. And as far as other coworkers and, team members within the company, although our candidates are receiving that workplace support, no one, that's not disclosed to anyone else. So, that's just one thing that comes up sometimes, and it's a very valid question because disclosure is such a sensitive topic, of course. But when coming into a new company through our program, no other team members have knowledge that you came through our program, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I know that's kind of leading off of your question to a little bit of a different topic, but that's what the training would look like for candidates coming through our program.
Yeah, but super relevant, and a question that I'm sure you get a lot is, will everybody know that I came through this program? So it's nice
Yeah.
to know that it isn't disclosed, that it is just the same as everybody else. One of the other questions we had come through was, do you need to have a formal diagnosis? Some of the programs that we work with, you do have to have some paperwork and a formal diagnosis. Is that the same for opportunities through Specialisterne?
So we do not require a formal diagnosis or documentation. So you won't ever be asked to provide that by Specialisterne or our client hiring managers, because we really focus on self-identification and barriers. So anyone who self-identifies with the list of neurodivergent labels or conditions that we have listed on our page and is facing barriers to employment as a result of that neurodivergence is totally eligible for our program.
Awesome. Um, Next question, what if we are interested in working for Specialisterne?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for your interest in joining our team, because it is a wonderful, and we are a quickly growing team, so it is likely that we probably would have internal positions at some point in the future. And in that case, they do always post those on our job opportunities page as well. They just will not be labeled as a neurodiversity hiring initiative with, one of our clients. So you'll be able to determine that that's an internal role.
Got
Yeah.
it. Another question that came in. So, do these internships have the potential to convert to full-time on completion if performance is good?
So these particular internships with Goldman Sachs, through our program, they are set up just to be 10-week internship. I guess you could kind of consider them like a 10-week contract. However, if Goldman Sachs, decided to hire you on, that's totally up to them, totally their decision. And I'm sure that possibility is always there. And typically, the way our recruitment model is set up is it is kind of like an internship to full time. So, as I mentioned, our candidates usually go through a temporary training period, and in those cases, you are pretty much guaranteed to transition into full time employment. But for these positions in particular, the model with our program was set up just to be a 10-week internship without expressed intention to transition to full time, although that opportunity may be there on the Goldman Sachs team. But I just wanted to clarify that because we do typically recruit for full time permanent employment opportunities that start out with a kind of mini internship but do transition to full time employment. This Goldman Sachs initiative is just a little bit different.
Awesome. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, of course.
Next question is I work with people who have autism and also rely on government assistance for community living. Specialists are not aware of the requirements for some people to continue receiving assistance for housing.
That's a great question. And I personally don't think I've come across that in my employment here. That's not to say our team isn't familiar with that. And I do not foresee any like conflicts with that, continuing and everything if you do come through our program. But I'm just not aware of that situation occurring previously. So I'm not sure what that would look like, but happy to help support that in any way we can if you do decide to apply with us.
Another question, does it help if I speak Danish?
So no, not really. I will say though that could change in the future if you do happen to speak another language in general, really, because we have recently kind of joined forces with our global team. So we are working on a more global scale now, and we have operations in like 14 countries, I believe, which I would imagine would present some opportunities uh, or the need for some bilingual skills, but not currently at this time.
Got it. Um, okay. Just wanting to make sure I get all of the questions here. Um, okay, I was late diagnosed and do not seem autistic to many people, and I have some imposter syndrome about that. Part of that is feeling like if I got a job through this avenue, I might be taking a spot from another person who might need more assistance than me. Do you have any advice or insights for me?
That's a great question, and thank you so much for that consideration for other participants as well. And that really goes back to barriers. So, there are neurodivergent individuals who don't really face issues with gaining employment or maintaining employment, although they're neurodivergent. So they, in that case, wouldn't necessarily benefit from our program. However, if you identify with being neurodivergent and you've had any barriers either getting a job or either you got a job but you kind of face some barriers with maintaining that long term, or whatever those barriers may look like, then, I definitely think you would benefit from our program, and you certainly wouldn't have to worry about taking the space of someone else that would be, because that is exactly what our program is designed for.
Awesome. Um, Somebody asked, autism is specifically mentioned, but could you tell us some other neurodivergent diagnoses that you see in your program? Would ADD or ADHD count?
Yes, ADD and ADHD are on the list of diagnoses that we support, and we do specify a list not to not include anyone, but it's simply the list of diagnoses that we know that we are equipped to support in our program. So that includes anyone who identifies with being on the autism spectrum, ADHD, ADD, OCD, as well as learning disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and Tourette syndrome.
We had a couple of questions about fully remote opportunities. So a lot of WGU students are located in rural areas and may not have access to the same employment opportunities. So could you talk a little bit more? Or do you often have 100% remote opportunities? How often are you seeing those come through?
So they do come up pretty regularly because when we're in job analysis, we actually encourage hiring managers we work with to offer fully remote flexibility when and where possible. Of course, it's not always, possible, as you can see with our Goldman Sachs opportunities. But we do that because our population tends to thrive with that remote flexibility overall. So for that reason, a lot of times we do have fully remote roles. And actually the 5WG students that were recently selected by an employer partner, those were all fully remote roles. And they do come up pretty regularly. So, and I'd always recommend to join our talent pool just to stay up to date on our hiring initiatives without having to, continuously remember to check our job opportunities page. And if you do, then you'd be on the list to be first notified as soon as we do have remote job opportunities or just opportunities within whatever your career interests and preferences may be.
Yes, and whenever those job opportunities come up, of course, definitely recommend joining the talent pool so you have access to those skill building resources.
Yes.
But whenever Amber sends us jobs, we send them out. So you'll get those emails through Handshake, just like you did for this session. Um, that let you know, hey, these are the opportunities that are coming up that are going to be available. Here's the deadline, and you can just click straight through to apply for those. So that's something else to keep in mind with those opportunities that might be coming up again here, in the coming months.
Yeah.
Now I'm scrolling through to see if there are any questions that I've missed, but if anybody has thought of anything else, feel free to put that in the chat. I think I've gotten everything. If you did send in a question and I did not ask it, send it again. It was not intentional to miss that question. Um, Amber, what we'll do after we log off, if you could send me the links to like join the talent pool and stuff like that, I'll be sure to send it out in the email with the recording.
Amazing.
Um,
Thank you. And I will do that for sure.
Yeah, okay. Is there a way I could show people examples of the assessment phase? So this came from the person who mentioned that they work with people who have autism.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand the question correctly, examples of like the activities you would be working on during assessment.
Yeah, it looks
Okay,
like they're nodding yes.
gotcha, gotcha. Oh, I see Christina. I see. Hi, Christina. So yes, or at least I can explain it verbally if that's okay. So it does vary per position, because it's essentially what the client hiring manager provides because they, as far as the work samples, because they, of course, know their role best and they do make those selection decisions ultimately. But just as kind of an example, so for like a tech project, if it's a software developer role, instead of asking you how you would do a certain coding task. We would just simply ask you, give like a prompt to as an example of what very similar to what you would actually be doing in the job, and would ask you like, how would you code this? And you may be able to tell I don't have a technical background. I don't code, but that is a very probably poor example, but that is an example. Essentially, you'd be doing a sample project for whatever the job entails. So really truly reflecting your skills and abilities relative to that project, if that makes any sense.
Here, Christina, I'm gonna let you come off mute if you want to ask a follow-up, okay? Okay, you should be able to unmute if you want.
So I guess I'm more looking for either visual aids or something that could kind of break down this process, because there's actually three individuals I was really excited to talk to about this, but one of my downfalls consistently is that I get very wordy and very animated, and then they have a million more questions where a lot of times if I just present some kind of content that's already kind of packaged and pretty, they might have one or two questions, but it's not quite as messy as I present it sometimes. So what I guess what I was wondering, like with the skills building, is there
Mhm.
any kind of like advertisement or something that kind of breaks some of those things down?
So I can look and see if we have any like visual representations of that I can maybe pass along to Kristen to share, as well with anyone else who may be interested in seeing that. But yeah, it's again, it just kind of varies depending on the role you're being considered for. But I can say it is a combination of those work sample projects and competency-based questions. So those questions that we put in writing that are very similar to formal interview type questions are also there along with the work sample project. So they're able to really get a good sense of um, you know both versions, how you would do like a technical task as well as how you would approach working in a team, for example. So that's kind of how we allow candidates to reflect their qualifications in that way. And I make it actually, I'll look into it, but I may be able to pull like an actual candidate profile template if that is shareable. I would love to share with you all just so you can kind of get an idea of what to expect, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Um, awesome, thank you. So now just getting some additional clarification, if somebody is interested in working at Specialisterne, that's on that same jobs page. It just won't be labeled neurodiversity hiring, is that correct?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, so it'll just still be on the same website. Oh, a
Yes.
really good question here. Can you speak to any feedback that you get from clients on the strengths of neurodivergent employees?
Yes. So I love that question. Thank you. I love all of these questions. So thank you all for asking them. But we do receive positive feedback very regularly. We actually send out kind of questionnaires and things to gather feedback on an ongoing basis. And I would definitely say majority of our feedback is very positive, and that's why we work with our employer partners over and over again. But overall, our clients really, majority of the time, report back to us that they see just the different ways of thinking that neurodivergent talent brings on the workforce really added value to their team through, of course, new ideas, but also new improvements of ways to do processes and things like that, those different ways of thinking just weren't available on their team before. So, yeah, majority very positive, and we really received that feedback on both sides from candidates and hiring managers.
Yeah, and to speak to Amber's point about these employers coming back over and over and over again, uh, several years ago when I was working at a different institution, I had a student who got hired by the same organization that just hired 5 WGU affiliated students. So definitely they are coming back and they're wanting to hire more neurodivergent people, which is so wonderful and really exciting to see.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I don't see any more questions in the chat, so I'll kind of wrap up a couple housekeeping things. Um, oh wait, we did get one more here, and then I'll go into the housekeeping stuff. So my biggest problem in my previous career was fitting in with workplace culture. Basically, I was 100% focused on the work, didn't socialize with coworkers after hours. This had a significant negative impact on my career. So this is something that Specialisterne helps with as people are transitioning into these roles with the organizations.
Yes, definitely. So as part of our program, we first will try to match you to work environments that we feel like are suitable for you, before selection even comes. And then even after you are selected and start with a company, we are there to support you throughout that entire process, for up to 3 months, I believe it is, that our workplace support managers maintain contact with not only you, but also your direct hiring manager, to kind of, facilitate that relationship and ensure everything is going smoothly. But yes, absolutely, that is a big part of our program, and we can definitely help with that because we really truly believe in, not changing the individual in any way, but changing the environment, or finding the environment where they are best suited. And kind of along those lines is our dandelion model. So I won't go into full detail on it now, but you should all definitely check out our website and read a little bit more about the dandelion model, because it kind of goes into that. But just essentially, in summary, it's about how dandelions, like in nature, in the field, a lot of times, um, you know, in the wrong environment, they won't thrive. They'll just be pulled up or weeded out and things like that. But people don't realize a lot of times that dandelions actually have a lot of benefits to the environment around them. And also, if we're talking about real dandelions, like they even have like health benefits and things like that. So we kind of equate the dandelions to our neurodivergent talent, and the value they can bring in the right environment. So I hope that helps.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
Um, awesome. Well, the session has been recorded, so I will be sending out a link to the recording probably tomorrow morning, so that you can watch it back if you'd like. Feel free to share if you've got, somebody in your life who you think would also really benefit from this. Feel free to share it out with them as well. And I'll include links to all of the resources and different pages and things on the website that we've talked about today, joining the talent pool, all of that good stuff. And Amber, if people have more questions for you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so feel free to reach out to me by email, and you can find all of my contact details on our website as well as my LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to wrap up the recording. If you do have other questions that you want addressed, but maybe don't want them addressed in the recording, stay here and hang out for a little bit, but I will be stopping the recording now. So thank you if you're watching the recording.